The citizens of Costanoa County have been pining for an elementary school to send their kids to while they go work in our industrial facility over here. So today we're going to give that to them along with some general balancing of our budget and possibly some power production. One of the first things I actually do want to do is go over here. And this is something I noticed while editing. I want to fix this so that driveway is actually facing the other way around, like that. And that's so it's not loading onto this street, Elizabeth Street here. So now that that's out of the way, I want to get back to the first thing to do, which probably is balancing our budget. The way that I like to do that is to go into the budget here and look at the monthly balance. And this number here, 247 per hour, is not that useful actually, because everything else is generally shown in monthly balance, a budget per month. And interestingly, we just bumped up a lot. I'm not sure what caused that, but for right now, I'm gonna try to look at our services and see if there's anything we don't quite need. And actually, we're doing okay. So I'll just go ahead and check out that elementary school, and I'm going to place this small one, and we have the opportunity to expand it later. This has a monthly upkeep of 5,000 per month, but I don't think that includes things like staff, so that number will likely be larger. But first, let's figure out where we want to place this, and I want it to be fairly centrally located and not too close to one of our main corridors here, just for traffic purposes. And I think I mentioned this spot as possibly having some perks. I think it, just as well could have a elementary school. So I think we'll use at least some of this space for that. And there is enough space to add on future extension wings. So I'll stick with that, put it on the corner here. And for now, I think I'm going to leave that as is and possibly add some detail later, even maybe an extension wing if we check out our demand. I think we're okay for now. Yeah, clearly. So the second thing I mentioned was balancing the budget, which now we're gonna have to actually be thinking about more. We're just gonna have to think about that more now that we have our school place down. And one of the ways that I think we might be able to get that balanced at least a little bit is to add electricity production so that we're exporting instead of importing, because importing is expensive. If we look at the electricity requirements, we consume 6 megawatts. That throughout the course of this episode may go up to, let's say, double that, so about 12, and then we might want a little bit of extra headroom, so up to, let's say, maybe 20 megawatts is what I'm looking for. We have a couple options. The wind turbines will produce up to 5 megawatts, but I don't have a place that I'm really wanting to place these. A lot of times you'll see these up on hills in real life, and we don't have access to like great hills. Actually, over here might be an interesting place. It's just that it's very close to our residential here, and I get the sense that these are not usually placed in too close of a proximity to housing because of the risk of failure. And when you have turbines spinning like that, a failure could mean that a turbine blade ends up, crushing a home or something. So that is something that I want to think about. I know it's like a cleaner form of energy production than, say, the coal power plant, which is actually the worst way to produce energy. And it does happen that this produces 20 megawatts is actually what I was targeting. So that is a nice coincidence. I also mentioned last episode, there's already a place that I think is good for this, which is just off of Elizabeth Street here. And I will continue out our grid here. So something of that sort is what I'm looking for. And then that road can kind of come around to the other side here. So I will get that placed, and it's going to cost 100,000. And let's see what our monthly budget is, yeah, so immediately it goes 40,000 deeper in the negative, and then another 30 to 40 and continuing onwards. So what I gotta do now is make sure that that is hooked up into our grid. I am gonna keep this transformer station because I think it's valuable to have. Well, I'm not sure if this small coal power plant will actually act as a transformer station or not, meaning that it can actually import from the outside world into this connection here. But I'm gonna assume that it does not, and I'm gonna leave this transformer station in, and I'll try to have a transformer station in the city generally, just in case that is something that I need to be worried about. I also kind of like the aesthetic of this. I've seen these around cities where I've lived, so I do just think they look kind of cool, and they fit in a city. So with that, let's go back to our budget and see. Okay, so yeah, now we're back down to just 30,000 in the red, and I want to check specifically electricity, and that is a bit lower overall than what we were spending before. I think before we were importing about 60,000 plus our fees, so we were probably about a similar spot, about 51,000. But as we increase the number of citizens, these fees will increase, so that will bring our monthly cost of electricity down because our maintenance and resources will remain fixed, ideally. Another thing I can consider is that if you look at our electricity production, we are now overproducing at 20.8 megawatts when we only need about 6. So what I can do for now is actually just bump down service budget, and I'll look at milestone 3 later. We'll be exporting less, but I want to see if I bump it down if our total budget here goes down. So I'm gonna just temporarily, let's bump that down to say 70% and let that simulate just for a little bit, and then we can see what that's doing to our budget overall. And it does look like it went down pretty considerably, so I'm gonna leave that at 70 for now, and then we can probably now check. I want to see how much capacity we have here, so we can also lower education down a little bit. I actually see what this does first. Affects service building efficiency, graduation chance, controversial move, but I don't think we're not even at half of the capacity of our elementary school. I don't think we need the full budget yet. We'll increase that once we get more citizens, but right now I want to start considering like expanding to fill a more considerable amount of this area. And where I want to start is right here. So this is where I mentioned before that I didn't really want to put in a bridge right here. I think I'm going to have a little bit of trouble putting in a bridge, just because if we look here, it'll probably try to do a key wall. Yeah, I mean, that's essentially just a key wall. There might be a way to get it. I'm not sure. It looks like water is preventing us from doing that. So I'm going to actually go ahead and try to raise up maybe just 1 tick and see if we can get out of the water. It is looking somewhat difficult. So 2, and that gets us out. And let me put that in and see if it is out of the water. And it is. And that's exactly what I want. So I'll lower this back down, go here to here, and see how that looks. And it's a little bit bumpy, but I'll fix that. And then this side, I'm just going to bring it straight through here. And then let me fix this. My recommendation here is to just always do more than you think you need, because it's much easier to just feather things out like this after you have a bunch of extra material to do it with. So then you get it looking a little bit better like that. And I'll do the other side really quick. So now that we have that connection, I think what that does is it opens up a lot of like this land here for development, as well as this area here. One of the things I had mentioned previously is that if we look at our contour lines, I want to bring a freeway in at some point that goes essentially directly here, all the way over to this island here, which is Treasure Island, I think. And with that in mind, I'd want to leave as much of this kind of undeveloped so I'm not deleting things later on. So I'm going to actually make this the primary, or like the last street parallel here, meaning I won't make a street here. I'm actually going to leave this open. And what I'm thinking is that in the future, what will happen is that the freeway will come in something like this, and at a maximum, we'd only really be taking out what is developed on this side. And then this area here is going to be kind of our big natural area for now. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend this out here, that, as well as this one. And then this area is as well going to be left undeveloped for now. I think now I want to bring in this road back in. So probably the best way to do that, I don't want to just, you know, build straight through. So I'll try to get the grid cells here. So you can see I'm at 90 degrees. So I'm in this row here. So that helps me to get this road in right here. I'll go a little bit over, and I don't want to bring it through here because then you get a junction that's too close to another junction for my liking. I also mentioned in the last episode that this medical center is a buffer between our industrial uses and then our residential uses. So I know that, for example, that's interesting. I know that this area here is going to be residential, and I can even see, you can see that the cells are a little bit messed up, but that's okay. Yeah, I know that this area here is going to be residential, and I think that will extend likely even all the way out here. But I will start right here in this area, and I will continue with the North American zoning and just low density. And I'm doing this slowly because I kind of want to, I'm trying to do it more thoughtfully. If I look at what I unlocked now with that large village milestone, there's a couple more city services, so I will want to start getting a larger tax base to pay for that. At this point, we probably don't need like a police station or a firehouse, just because you generally don't need it that early in the game, and you don't want to be paying for it too early because we just don't have the money right now. Like, we don't have the 10,000 for that, we don't have 15,000 for that. So what we need right now is really just tax revenue. And I'm just going to balance a little bit more of this, lower this a little bit more to see if that will help our budget issues. I know this is lowering our export, but my hope is that the maintenance costs are actually larger than the export brings in. So by lowering the maintenance costs, we're actually lowering costs more than we are lowering our revenue, if that makes sense. Inevitably, we are going to need more taxation. And one thing I like to do is actually just make a kind of tiered tax system where we go like something like 6, 8, 9, and then the highly educated will be the most highly taxed. Something like this. And I think the educated, because it's the biggest source of revenue in the residential, I want to make sure it's not like, it's kind of in the midpoint. And it is not too low. Let's take a look at commercial. I think none of these are really high enough to justify changing at the moment. And then industrial, I think, yeah, not too much reason to micro this, but I will just, what I like to do is take the highest ones and just bump them up 1%. And it's pretty arbitrary where I make that selection. Like, I'm doing just about 7,000, maybe even this one and this one. So yeah, like about 5,000 is my cutoff for increasing the taxes. And over time, what you'll see is that, for example, vehicles, the number of industries spawning in that produce vehicles will decrease over time because the tax rate is higher for this than say paper. And then at some point later, I will rebalance. So yeah, you can see now the $30,000 deficit. I want to address that before I start adding in services. There's a funky thing with the way that the simulation works where I've noticed that having taxes be too high for too long means that you don't get people moving into your city. Because people aren't moving in, or they're actually moving away, you aren't getting enough taxation to balance your budget. So you could have all these services, and even lowering the budget of your services doesn't help, because then people really don't want to move in because your service coverage is bad. So it's kind of this like weird problem that you have where you try to save money, but that actually backfires and makes it such that people don't want to live in your city, which is fair enough, right? Like, who wants to live in a city that has bad roads, has bad healthcare, no education, etc.? So with that, I'm going to try to keep a good balance of that throughout the episode and just throughout the playthrough. I mean, you get to a point where your taxation is running away, so your budget ends up being, you have such a surplus that it doesn't really matter anymore, but in the early game it is important. So for now, what I'll do is I will fill out this area with some additional residential, maybe leaving some gaps for some parks. That's about it though. So like here's a gap for a park, and you can see the zoning is still weird here. I'm not sure what happened there, but it seems to be working okay, so I'll stick with it. And then because this is kind of like a natural area, the pollution, as long as the wind direction is good, yeah, so the pollution won't be coming into this area. So I think we can get residential like all the way up. So really all of this can be residential as well. And because this is so close to a natural area here, I don't really feel the need to put a park like anywhere here, because the game may not see it as this, but to me this is a park area, so it makes this area already more desirable to live in. Yeah, you can see things are filling in a little bit. At some point, I want to get these parks in. That's something I never understood that about the game's progression, like why you don't have parks unlocked from the beginning. Like that seems like something fairly obvious to have unlocked straight away. But yeah, you just have to deal with what the game gives us, I guess. Okay, so where I want to look to next is one of two places to add some additional residential and kind of expand our housing. The first would be maybe this area, but like I said, that's kind of encroaching on that future freeway project that I keep mentioning. This area here, the issue I see with that is that we don't own this tile, so we'd have to buy this tile and potentially even this tile if I wanted to be exhaustive about it. And I don't want to do that yet because it's just going to be expensive. We can take a look. It's going to cost, I mean, $4,500 a month. That's not crazy, but it's definitely not helping our budget, which is already $24,000 in the negative. So I don't want to do that. We do have this big plot of land right here. And this is where we get into the territory of not wanting to build this same grid that I've got here. And I don't want to continue that necessarily up this hill, because the issue that we'll run into is this street right here going up that hill straight like this is gonna cause issues for the game. It also is problematic in real life just because I've mentioned this before, but buses can't necessarily traverse a hill that is this steep if they go straight up. They may be able to go, this way, more diagonal to the grading, but going straight up is actually just not possible. And that's how you get cable cars. So what I'll do is I will start going up this direction, and I want to be considerate of two things. Well, really I want to be considerate of actually just one thing, but it's two in the same. So these streets here are what I'm looking at, where we have our commercial. I want these to be main thoroughfares. So that's kind of going to be our anchor points for the new grid. And the way I want them to go up is something like this. So they're going up diagonally in this direction, such that they kind of get to this point where they're actually matching the grade up to here. I think what I want to do is make it somewhat uniform by actually going out at a 45-degree angle. You can see right there, 45 and 135. There is a way to actually do that properly, and I will do that, which is to out, let's say 80, and then go over another 80 back, and then that'll be exactly 45. And that's what I want. And then I'm going to actually quickly go back here and just make sure that I have a proper anchor on the right point for the grid cells. So what I'll do is I'll just bring that out pretty much as far as it goes. And you can see, let me bring it out just a little bit and show you this. You can see if I just keep going out this way, it's only really like a 2% grade, versus if I go straight up, almost 5%. Yeah, it's like a 5% grade, and it gets even steeper the further up you go. So that, you know, is half as much rating. That's going to be much easier, not only for the game to kind of resolve, but also just realistically is easier for people to get up and down that. So that's one. This other street here, I think I want to actually come in the opposite direction so that they intersect up here. And then that'll kind of be a central place. I'll do the same thing. I'll go out 80, over 80, and then back there. And then I'll do a similar thing here just to make sure that the grid cells are right. I don't know that that's really doing anything, but I believe that it is. And then just go straight through here, and we'll get a funky thing going on with the grid cells, but that's actually fine in this case. I think it's pretty much unavoidable, just given, yeah, the math of how these distances work out and everything. So I will start with that, and then this is kind of like, this is what we're basing the grid on, that is going to be on this hill, or at least, you know, I probably won't grid as I get higher up here. I'll follow the contour lines more, but in this area where it's a little bit less steep, I will continue some sort of grid system. It's just going to be off angle so that the grading is not too crazy. Next up, I want to start filling out some roads. And what I'll do, so I'll kind of look at the underlying grades, like right here. What I'm seeing is that there's not really enough to justify any sort of like weird street layout. So I'm just going to bring this like straight through. And the same goes here. And then you kind of get this like shape going here, which I like. I think what I'll do is I'll also make around there. Then we get this kind of next block. So I'm just going to fill that out as I see fit, and I'll do a similar thing as I've been doing, which is just putting some medium density fronting this way. I won't do what I did on the other side here, right here, because we actually do have now the French region pack, which handles corner buildings really well. I don't have the pack in this save yet, for the playset for this save yet, because it's just kind of big, and I want to play around with it in a different build that I'm doing before I bring it into this one. And the buildings are also quite big, so I don't want to just have it in this one just yet. That's the reason behind that. What I'll do now is just fill this out as well with some lower density, and that'll make this this corridor kind of our main corridor. And one of the things I'm actually not loving about what I've done here is Market Street right here is actually 2 lanes. And I think what I actually want is for that to be a wider street. Yeah, so I actually can't upgrade now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to delete a couple roads here. So I'm actually going to have to delete all of this for sure. And I'm unfortunately going to have to evict all those people right away. I'm actually just going to delete all this and do this up front because I think it's going to be harder the longer I leave it for sure. So, and I just, yeah, I know that this is a street that I want to be larger than the rest of them because I want it to be the most prominent street in the area. I'll bring that all the way over here. And then we'll redraw out our 45-degree angles, which would have been coming from this anchor point before, but now are going to be coming from here. So let me do that. So that is actually what I wanted. So I'll do the same thing and I'll zoom. Of making these homes here medium density and then filling out some low density on the other side. This intersection is going to be quite important. What I think is going to happen is that this road will continue this way and probably hop onto this contour line right here over like this. Or it could actually tee off. Yeah, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to bring this road, like a new road here. And then I'm going to bring this road here just right on through. And that'll be the terminus of that road. And this road will terminate there. This road now you can see like really nicely matches on this contour line here. And I can literally just bring it out straight as far as I want. And it will make the grid a little bit more interesting because, I mean, first of all, we have this like giant X and that kind of looks cool. But the other interesting piece is that this road right here is following a different alignment than this road here, which is intentional. I actually want it to be a little bit offset because like I said, that's paying a little bit of respect to the topography that we have in the city. So I think I want to continue this grid actually just as it has been. And let me make sure I get the right length on everything here. In the long run, by making, these sorts of decisions that align better with the topography, like I think what will happen is that the city will look much more interesting, especially from like an aerial view, but it'll also look interesting like from the ground because you'll get views down that kind of end points like this. Neckbeard Mike's Comics. And yeah, it'll just be kind of like an interesting look to the city that's not, a uniform grid all around, but it does have those elements throughout. And yeah, so I don't want to be too descriptive in the way that I'm gridding. Like over here, I was very uniform with the grid. I wanted to make sure my grid cells were more or less perfect. Over here, I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'm just going to kind of freestyle a little bit and we'll just have like these small gaps and things won't line up perfectly. And I think that's not only okay, but I think makes sense on the hillside. That is 152. So I will also do 152 in this area as well. So I will be like prescriptive about that piece, but that may not be the case all around. And I'll get a rough measurement here, so 108, and that'll inform then this road here. It seems to just lock onto 108. Yeah, and then as I get to these kinds of areas, I'm just gonna kind of like swing it in. I don't want to bring another road out here, although you do see kind of funky roadways like that in San Francisco. What I want to do is I want to pedestrianize it. Yeah, and I think it pays off to prioritize pedestrians as much as possible rather than vehicular traffic. I'm probably just going to speed this up, and maybe what I'm saying right now is not going to get cut anyways, but speed this up and fill out this area here as best I can. Okay, so I think I'm satisfied with this initial road and path layout, and you'll notice that I have set up a lot of these paths beforehand in this way, and making these crossings right now, because if you add these crossings in later, they can mess up your zoning. So I wanted to make sure I got those out of the way right now, and I kind of just added them where either the zoning was a little bit weird, or maybe I just felt that there needed to be additional pedestrian connectivity on larger blocks. Like right here would be the example, and even now that I'm looking at it again, I think this is a good candidate for it. We have a lot of space right here. There's no road here, and I don't want to just add a road because there's space for it. I want to consider other options, and I think a good alternative is to just add some paths. And I think you get really end up with really cool looking cities in when you do things like this, because it kind of just breaks things up and makes it look a little bit greener because you can add in trees. That's one of the issues with this sort of a grid system, is that, you know, you're really limited to just adding in zoning unless you want to underzone and, like I've done here, add in alleys, or you could add paths and trees here. But really you end up just being kind of limited in terms of how much detail you can add into spaces like this. So adding a path network, I think not only is it helpful for letting people get around, it's just really, it looks cool too. So that's kind of, that's the angle I've taken there. So now what I want to do is I want to start thinking about two things. So first, let's check back in on our budget, and it's not going great. Clearly we need more people living in our city, and we have the demand for it. So that, I think, is what we're going to want to do. And that's leads me to my second thing, which is we should add in some zoning. And yeah, I want to be thoughtful as to where we add in certain types of zones. So right in here on this intersection, probably going to be, you know, maybe a park right here, and, you know, maybe some commercial right here. But I want to leave this area largely undeveloped for now, just because we don't have demand for commercial, and I don't want to put housing necessarily right there. So I'll leave it for now, and I'll start in places where I'm pretty confident there will be homes. And that'll be places like, I think off of these main streets here, like over here, you know, I think it might make sense to have some commercial right there. So I'll just kind of zone maybe like that. I'll be fairly like frivolous with it for now. Just leaving open spaces for future development on, you know, non-residential uses. And then in areas like this, I think is another great candidate for some medium density. And I think what I want to do, particularly in a place like maybe like this, is just add a targeted medium density building, because it's in this kind of awkward corner, and I think a larger building looks good in these sorts of awkward spaces because they take up more vertical space, so that your negative space here doesn't look so out of place. And then what we can do is make it look a little bit nicer with, for example, I think some smaller trees would look great here, and I love the linden for a space like this. So just a small one there, and then maybe a birch back here, and possibly a few bushes. And then other things like, I love all these benches that are available now. What I'll even do in an area like this maybe is just a small path will make a big difference in the way it looks. And then that allows me to, yeah, add a nice garden bench, for example, and a trash can. And then if you get nice and close, I mean, that looks really nice. And I think when the building comes in, it'll look fantastic. So that'll be that. And then I think what I want to do is now add in, yeah, some medium density, and I will just butt it right up against it. I don't love when City Skylines does things like this. It makes it kind of challenge to zone these areas, and I think what is going to end up having to happen is I'm going to have to just go shallow on these zones. I'm not sure, sort of like putting in a path right here just to prevent that zoning. I'm not sure what I can really do. See, it already kind of messes up this zoning as well. But I think as long as it prevents that wonkiness from happening, I'm totally fine with this zoning being broken. And I think I'm just going to leave that unzoned. as well as like that won't be zoned. And I'm going to leave this area of Belmont Street free for, you know, whatever development I want to do. And then go in here. I think this is a nice place for an oak tree. A nice oak tree right there. And, you know, I love in spaces like this to just put like a large boulder in, so that there's some, you know, there's some reason it feels like that we didn't put a home here, because there's this massive boulder that would have been a pain to move. So yeah, now you can kind of see like there's some sort of story as to why developers looked at this and were like, okay, we're not going to build back there. We'll just leave it as is. And you see these spaces a lot of times behind row homes like this, where you wouldn't exactly expect there to be green space back here, especially if you're at the street level. Like if you're at the street level right here, it really doesn't feel like you'd have backyards back here sometimes, but you often do. And I think you even often have more than just backyards, but open space that, you know, maybe somebody owns this space, but they have decided not to develop it. I am noticing while I was kind of down here that there is some crime going on, which I'll want to address at some point. Taking a look at our budget, still down 40,000, not great. This is, I think, the most challenging stage of this game. Let's take a look back at this building here and just kind of get a view at it from our Neckbeard Mike's comics. So if you're over here and you look over here, yeah, you get kind of like this nice little space that it feels like feels lived in, I guess. The other thing I'm seeing, okay, now we have garbage. Got a little bit of a crime issue. I think the crime issue takes second precedence to the garbage. The only thing I'm worried about, so there's two things I'm worried about. I'll show you the first one, is the efficiency of our power plant, which is now at 24% because of service budget and pile up garbage. Pile up garbage has a minus 50%, which is, you know, it's kind of wild how big of an, it's not crazy because obviously if you have piled up garbage, like that sucks. So it's not that crazy that it has a big efficiency. It's just nerfing the efficiency like that. But yeah, I mean, 24%, that's kind of unacceptable at this point. And we're only producing 4.8 megawatts out of a highly polluting building here. So that is of great concern, and it's causing issue with our budget in that we are still paying a lot for this, but we're not getting like any export and not getting as many fees. We're having to import to cover our bases here. So that's why I think it's important to actually focus on our garbage management instead of the police right now. With that, I have to find a spot for that, and I don't want to buy another tile. I'm thinking about putting it over here, but yeah, like I said, I don't want to buy another tile. And we do have this land over here, which I might add is downwind of our industrial area, so it's already a little bit polluted here. So because of that, I think that it makes sense to put down our garbage facility here. And you know, I actually now have another idea, which is the following. If I know that I want to put in a freeway and like bridge right here, this is more or less like junk land to me. And because of that, maybe I'll just do something completely different. And I'm going to keep that there. That's just going to be kind of a alignment thing that I'll keep. This area actually is maybe best for our garbage facility, like right in this sort of thing here. And I would like this to be a somewhat temporary facility, so I'm not going to worry too much about road alignment. And I'll just put this kind of lane right here, and then I'll try to center it, centered. that should suffice for now. I just need to get something down. And you'll see again, like our budget's going to go off the rails here. That's cool, but I think I can go all the way down on that. Let's just take a look. Vehicles in use, 6 out of 20. I don't think we need all the processing speed, which I'm pretty sure is what is hindered by that. Let's double check. Look at services and garbage management, building efficiency, processing speeds, how many garbage trucks. Yeah, so it's like we don't need all that processing speed and we don't need all those garbage trucks. So now it should be fine to just lower this all the way down to 50. Hopefully that will resolve our electricity issue. The other thing that I want to make note of is that I have in the past had troubles with garbage piling up at the coal power plants and needed to replace them. It seems like maybe just a bug in the game. So I'll keep an eye on that. Hopefully our efficiency isn't just permanently nuked, and we have sick employees too, which is not great. And another crime scene. So this is the point of the game that I'm referencing where things get kind of challenging. But our monthly balance at least is not at minus 100 now. So that's positive. And I think what we kind of have to do is probably add more residential. But like I said, when you're adding more residential, you're adding more people and you're actually stressing your services even more. So you end up having to pay more on services. And it just gets challenging. I think we're just gonna have to deal with it for now. I'm seeing like, there's just still so much land over here to develop, and I want to start thinking about that. And I think on this side of this path right here is where I'll put some additional housing. And I'm pretty confident that I do want it to be there. So let me just formalize that. Yeah, I think the lower density residential, it's being sapped pretty quickly. So what that is saying to me is like, probably we'd want some more industrial, and I know we have some of these as well. Potentially I could get a little bit. Yeah, just a grain farm might work. Yeah, I think right here makes good sense. And just a little nub there. And that won't cause too much traffic, but we will be able to get some additional industrial demand dealt with. So I'll use the trick of get rid of snapping too, get building around those electricity lines. But yeah, just having a small farm rounds things out a little bit around here, and I'll bring it out just a little bit further. And you do see some of this in California, like having farms kind of close to the coast. It's not that uncommon. You see it a little bit on Highway 1 south of San Francisco. So it's not unheard of, but it is a little bit strange because obviously this is saltwater, so I don't know how that plays with farming. Cool. And then, I do want to get just some zoned industrial in. And for that, since we have this alley coming out here, go ahead and continue that up to here. Put a little bit of parking out on this side. Let's get, I think, a small one. Yeah, a small one works well. And then I'll just kind of zone out this whole thing here. And then we still have our gap here. We're not zoning onto Sunset Street just yet. I think just a little bit of additional low density in this region right here. And because there's that gap, I don't really see much of a reason not to bring in a path here just to kind of round it out. And while I'm here in zones like little areas like this, I like to make sure this will be a difficult one to I think it has to be like that. Anyways, in zones like this, I like to come through, do a bit of detailing while I'm there, just because I might forget later. Really, that's kind of it. And I love to put trees just like in kind of corners. And then if I see a line like this, what I like to do is just kind of, yeah, put some of the same type of tree in a row. And then something like this, what I like to do is take the poplar, which is a very small tree. And maybe here what I'll do is just kind of go back and forth. None of this stuff needs to be perfect. You just kind of want to fill out some space with some green so that it looks, yeah, it just looks a little bit better. It doesn't look so barren and wasteland, essentially. And then some apple trees. So if someone wants to go pick a few apples, they can. Have anarchy. That's like one thing I'd like to be able to do is overlap these rocks actually, but it kind of looks okay. So, and I don't love to have too many mods just because it, especially when the game is being developed like actively as it is right now, I don't want to be messing too much with that for now, just so I don't get too many errors and having my game break and whatnot. And now it feels a little bit more cohesive as like part of this neighborhood. And what a view just straight at the coal power plant, which from here looks really strange. And yep, that was just a graphical error. It almost looked like a boat from all the way over here, like a cruise ship. Or like a giant tank. Anyways. Yeah, so I'll check the budget again, and it's getting closer balanced. And I think because of that, try to make it a little bit more desirable here by, you know, increasing some of this. I saw some sick folks around, so increase that. Again, more crime. I don't know what the negative impact is of that in this game, really. Average crime probability 1%, that's like still not, doesn't seem that high. So I think it's not an issue. We'll see. And then over here, I think I'll just kind of do a similar thing with the homes and bring them up to the same point. And then, yeah, since I'm right here again, what I'll do is I'll make a bit of a base here as well. Yeah, I don't know if that's like exactly what I want, but I think it's yeah, good enough. And let me just put in few extra, which is just kind of around, and couple, maybe just one or two poplar trees if I can to fill it out. So it feels like a small space there. Cool, so then you can kind of see what I'm going for here, which is you can have a nice walk from your home out here to downtown, essentially. What is our downtown right now? Yeah, monthly balance still not great. Those are demand. Yeah, again, just more homes is kind of where we're at. Let me think about where those go. I think, again, right here, and what I'll do once again is, because the zoning's just janky right there, I'll bring it all into one side. And yeah, you can see a little bit of like how that terrain's deforming right there. We look at the terrain. Yeah, we're getting on the hill here, but my hope is, at least, it's not too crazy. I mean, that is a little bit much. It's hard for me to say if that's too much, though. Like, once you get a few trees in there, it might look fine. The one thing I will say is if you look at the side here at this road, like, I don't think this is too crazy, this grade. I don't think that's too wild. I do think it's a little bit too much there for my taste, and what I'll do because of that is I'll probably take, look at this, yeah, I'll probably take this side down just one right here. Take that side down one, let those zone back in, and then that makes a huge difference right here. And I'll just kind of feather this out a little bit and do that. And I'm just kind of gauge. Yeah, so I don't want to go too deep on these homes. So I think that's good. Just leave a little bit of space, and when you come in and look, yeah, that's totally fine right there in terms of grading. Again, like having a little bit of trouble putting trees down right here, so I'll refrain from that for a little bit, and I'll just delete actually what we've got going on here entirely, and I will landscape that myself. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Sorry about that, people. And another nice thing is, yeah, you can see with the kind of irregular zoning I did, you get these gaps, and I think with the way these backyards kind of slope up like this, it does not look all that unnatural to me. This, you know, the backyard is the kind of area you would expect to slope up or down. So I think that looks fine. And then you can see the front still looks pretty nice. So I think this is heading in an overall good direction. I'm seeing this space here, and I'm wondering, can I put a path here? And I totally think I can. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Cool, and you can see like that path is not too steep. You know, it's actually totally fine. And this area here is going to be perfect for some trees. Cool, so you can kind of, I hope you can see the direction that I'm taking this and what I mean when I say we're not going to just plop down a grid without paying attention to the topography that we're dealing with, particularly with roads like this, where this road is, you know, perfectly straight. So if you were a cyclist and you wanted to say in the future get from this part of the city all the way to this part of the city, you could in theory go just downhill a little bit and then hop here, and all of a sudden you're all the way over here. And then from here you could kind of have pretty easy access to much of the city this direction, and you could even hop onto this path network, and that, you know, will make your cycle a little bit safer and more enjoyable because you're going through a more natural area. So those, like, as a cyclist myself, this sort of stuff is exactly what I would want to be on. It's, of course, you know, this isn't actually great for biking because you have to cross this intersection, which isn't amazing, especially just with how it curves. So this is really more for pedestrians, I guess, but yeah, it's just like having a pedestrian focus also helps cyclists because the city itself is designed around like people instead of cars, and then it makes it safer for cyclists as well. That's at least my hope. Anyways, ranting aside, I want to continue with some of my medium density here, actually. We'll continue with the North American. I'm just kind of digging that right now, and we'll go like that. And then we'll do a similar thing with the low density right here. And again, leaving this gap here. This area in here, actually, that can go ahead and be low density, and I'll leave, no, we'll go all the way out this time and try to actually make them do that, because they don't love doing that. Sometimes they don't use the whole space all the time, which is fine. It just, you have to delete space or delete homes every once in a while. Cool. I'm actually really liking how this area is turning out. I'm going to go ahead and detail this now. And the idea I usually have behind doing this is that people are going to be walking here. The residents in these homes are going to want some level of privacy. And of course, they have fences, but having the trees just makes it feel even more private. So let's check it out. So if you're coming through here, I think it looks pretty decent. And it's important, especially on this side, to have these more thicker trees because this here is elevated above these homes. So if you're walking here, without these trees, you would basically just be looking directly into this person's home. So that again is, yeah, the thinking behind that. And it's hard to get the right mix, I feel like, of having just enough trees so that this person living here kind of still has a view out over the city this way. And I think that is important to think about too. You know, of course, it doesn't actually matter, but if you want to be able to look at the street level in your city and see cool things, like you need to think about how you might be obstructing views of this beautiful smokestack that everybody loves. So I want to see, oh, we're almost at the next milestone, which I think is going to give us, yes, parks. Okay. So once we get parks, that is going to be kind of the endpoint for this episode. I'm hoping that, yeah, our monthly balance is still pretty manageable. The garbage got cleaned out here, so our efficiency is high enough to be producing enough electricity. And let's double check the amount that we need. Yeah, we're still overproducing, so that's good. That I'm sure has helped our budget quite a bit. And it, you know, it may really just be paying for the garbage management. So, but that's obviously still worth it. We'll just bump this up a little bit. I think it's very expensive, but I think it's worth it to have good healthcare coverage because I don't know if this is 100% true, but I think it makes people like actually want to live in your city. So something to just consider, I guess. Bumping things down does not always help. Of course, like that makes sense intuitively, but for me, it was hard to figure it out. Yeah, I think, yeah, this right here, great place for a playground, actually. Once I get, how many XP do I need? 12? Once I get that 12 XP for the milestone. I'm just very much so struggling to get that 12 XP, so let me see if I can do anything to speed up that process. And I think probably putting a house here. There. Well, that does it. Okay. So that's 100,000 development points, which we don't really need, expansion permits, which we don't really need that many of. So all that's, you know, great. But the most important thing, we get parks. And this is where things start, well, I mean, they're already fun, but I really just love parks. I think they're just so important to have in your city. So where, oh yeah, this was the first one I wanted to do. See if I can get the small playground in here. It might not fit. That's okay. It would fit if I removed this, which I am okay with doing. If I get a park out of it. Let me see if there's any way to position this such that I can still get a path. There may be actually. Does that work? Oh, yes, it does. And then yep, can still get a path here and it still looks decent. Cool. Yeah, that looks nice. Yeah, so that park was a big one. And then I just want to check. I only have 179 students, that's good. I want to get a playground in here, and I think sure we'll put it right next to elementary school. And then on the other side, what this place has not had is a parking lot, and I think unfortunately parking lots do kind of matter. You do need those. As much as I wish biking were in the game, it's not, so we do need that. That generally looks okay. And then we've had this whole other side to either expand into or do something else with. And then I'll spend a little bit more money on some parks. I think dog park is a good one to get somewhere. And let's look at our just coverage in general. Because this is kind of a weird spot, maybe I could get a larger park there. No, I'll leave it for now. I do want to get a dog park in, say, there. And we'll put another one. Where do I want to put that? Let's say up here, I think. That's good. And any other parks? Maybe a small plaza if we can get one. Yeah, I think over here would actually be cool for that. On one of these corners, if I can fit it in. And I want to consider too the topography that we have going on. Probably this one's the best. I want to put it there, but I think it's just going to look terrible if I put it here. Let's check it out. Actually, it's not bad. It's just not exactly what I wanted, where it dips down like that. But I think it's okay, especially as a park. And then that will mean that I can put some more housing in. Yeah, that's kind of exactly what I wanted for this area is a focal piece. And then in this area here, we may have, some commercial. I see too that we have offices now. But what I will say is that I want to leave it at this point. And for the next episode, I think the things we'll consider are balancing our budget a little bit further. And I think we're pretty close on that, but we're going to need to also consider some of the city services that we need, like police and fire. And I think, this central area might be good for those, as well as these areas here that have close access to the whole of the city. I think we'll just have to fill out this area as well. I like to do this in stages. I think that's a relatively realistic way of doing it. I don't think all of this would develop instantly at once. And you see that a lot when you just mass zone things. I like to respond to the demands as needed as much as I can. So yeah, for the next episode, I think that's what we'll focus on, is some additional city services, maybe a high school, and balancing our budget. With that though, I want to thank anyone who has watched this video. And again, please leave any feedback that you have. It's greatly appreciated, particularly if you have any feedback on, ways I can improve the video, or maybe builds you want to see, where I should expand to in terms of buying tiles, really anything that you want to see in the city, or you want to see about the video quality improving. Yeah, just throw it down in the comments, and I'll do my best to address that. And with that, I will see you in the next one.